I'll just start by asking, what are sort of your thoughts on the current conflict with Pegasus being used in the Armenian-Azerbaijan conflict?
Well, let's start by correcting misconception number one, which is that it's Pegasus that's being used in the conflict. Actually, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that Armenia and Azerbaijan are on the verge of signing a major peace agreement. They just literally recently recognized each other's territorial integrity, which is a huge breakthrough after 2 years and over 30 years of tensions and occupation. Uh, and so the natural question that arises, why would someone leak the information and bring up the hacks that happened allegedly 2 years ago at the time when the two countries are about to sign a major agreement? The fact of the matter is there's been plenty of obstacles along the way, including from other countries such as Russia and Iran, both of whom have interest in not having this normalization and regional integration occurred, and many of them have been part and parcel of various campaigns. Now, with respect to Pegasus, so far there hasn't been conclusive evidence that Pegasus has been used. Pegasus is a type of malware that has been widely imitated by an assortment of various companies. Therefore, it could have been any one of them, and so far it has not been confirmed that it was Pegasus. More importantly, it's extremely irresponsible from the organizations that put out this information to report it as if it's Pegasus, as opposed to simply describing it as a um, type of a virus with particular characteristics. That especially that creates that basically creates misinformation, if not outright disinformation, that draws attention away from the problem and focuses on a specific company and a specific software. So it becomes a campaign against the software and not against discovering who hacked those individuals, why they did that, and why is it now becoming an issue. So I would not say it's Pegasus. It's something that is similar to Pegasus, may or may not be Pegasus, and that these companies have not had the proper tools to analyze. There has been no independent process for discovery, and there may not be because the individuals there are only cooperating with specific organizations that had an anti-Pegasus agenda all along and are not necessarily interested in resolving this particular conflict or bringing it to an end.
So it may not specifically be Pegasus, but what is this? What is the hacking of all these different individuals and public figures? What does this mean for the world? What do you think was sort of the intention behind the hackings in the first place?
Well, first of all, we need to firmly establish that they were in fact hacked and that there was outside intrusion. Second, assuming that that is in fact true and it's not an organized disinformation campaign to disrupt the peace process, which includes those particular individuals, or that they haven't been misled about what happened, there may be any number of reasons. There may be legitimate reasons to hack those particular people. For instance, if they were cooperating in a bellicose in some sort of bellicose activity, if they were masterminding a plot to renew, to escalate tensions, to start another war, that is always a legitimate reason to engage in surveillance and intelligence gathering, but especially during a state of conflict. It could have been that they were being surveilled by somebody within their own government who had an access to a company for reasons that are entirely internal and could be anything, but they are being now ascribed to this conflict because those particular politicians have a political agenda that is different from their prime minister, uh, um, who has been at the forefront. And it could have been a malicious actor from that is a third party, not party to this at all, for reasons of trying to exacerbate problems between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It could have been an issue of one particular person being targeted and then the rest falling prey by passing on the information because we still don't know the exact nature of that virus and what characteristics it has. Has one of those politicians accidentally forwarded the message to others? Has there been any contact between them? We don't know. But there's just so much information that hasn't been independently examined to establish what actually happened. We can only speculate about possible motives at this time.
So, what are just some of the other misconceptions? What do you think is just not true about what they're saying about this hacking conflict?
Well, I think it's important that they are not saying that the media campaign about Pegasus has colored the perception of surveillance in conflicts and outside conflicts in the past few years without very strong independent evidence actually showing that Pegasus was indeed actually used and that the targets have not always been legitimate threats. Those two issues are very important to understanding the global surveillance landscape. It's very important to know also that Pegasus, along with other similar software, has been used by NATO members to surveil legitimate threats Russian Russian targets during the course of war with Ukraine. And there is an agenda on Russia's side to intercept any commercial software that it has not been able to acquire independently and that presents a threat to its own interests. So some of the organizations pushing this agenda have been known to have contacts with the Russia's intelligence agencies and their agents and facilitators, such as Edward Snowden. You will see that some of the human rights NGOs pushing this agenda have had public contacts with those groups. They've had a sort of a local coordination. They've been sympathetic to each other's goals. And in one the instance of Amnesty International, they actually caused a scandal by taking a public position independently of the Pegasus issue that was considered very biased and pro-Russian and resulted in one of their employees resigning from the office, from heading the office in Ukraine. So you can see there's been meddling by human rights NGOs in conflicts previously, separate and apart from the methods used. I can even give you example from the Second Karabakh War between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I personally, and I had exposed, I had helped expose that at the time, noted that that several human rights organizations had made erroneous and in some cases fabricated reports about the alleged targeting of civilians by Azerbaijan. It was never proven, and those reports were done by people who never visited the physical situation and therefore did not have the full access necessary to make the calculations of ballistic trajectories that would have been useful in this analysis. So there's also no shortage of actors that are either not professional, that don't have the right information or the right access, or who have a political agenda but who have a reputation that gives them credibility in public.
And just last question, what are some of the countermeasures you think needs to be taken so that against these hacking software so this type of incident does not happen again?
Well, in terms of potential targets of hacking, they should be careful and not click on suspicious links until they're verified to be. That's general advice to anybody anywhere. It's common sense, and yet people make the mistake because phishing software becomes increasingly more sophisticated in imitating the type of message that such people would likely have gotten from their trusted contacts. So that's general advice for any situation. Regarding abuse of commercial software, Pegasus specifically is very highly regulated. In fact, banning a very highly regulated software in favor of less regulated software can only increase likely abuse. So actually, as far as regulation goes, it's also extremely expensive to operate. Essentially, first of all, it limits the number of targets per year internationally, the company that has created it, and second of all, it's very expensive to operate. So countries that are smaller, in particular, and don't have sufficient budget, will only use it for high value targets. People who are proven to be people or entities who are proven to be legitimate threats, terrorists, violent insurrectionists, intelligence, foreign intelligence, and organized crime. So they're not going to waste it on politicians for whom they can use other types of software if they do want to spy on them. So that's why I think there is a political agenda here. There are many types of ways to spy on somebody and get information without having to go to the expense and to the infamy of falling into a trap of a software that by 2021 already had the reputation being extremely controversial due to these complaints. So taking such a risk um, would have meant potentially meeting with very negative publicity, which both Azerbaijan and Armenia have tried to avoid, particularly Baku, that has been very sensitive to that situation if you look at their media coverage. So it doesn't strike me as plausible that it was in fact Pegasus. I find it striking that this act of hacking has been kept in secret for 2 years rather than aired instantaneously to resolve the issue as quickly as possible. And so I believe that that we need to further question these politicians and ask them why, or their organizations that allegedly analyze their phones, and ask them why they are reporting this only now, and what evidence can the international community find and verify in public to show that it was indeed that particular company software that was used.
Irina, thank you so much.
Thank you.